And our next guest, Kay Reid, has taken up the challenge from her tupuna and has become one of the leading Māori leaders in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, please, a warm welcome for Kay Reid.
Tēnā koutou, tēnei timi kia koe ward, mō tō mihi māhana kia hau, I tēnei wā, nō reira tēnā koe, nō reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. I am Kay Reid, and my husband is Hayden Reid, and he talked me into coming today to talk with you. I did say to him at the time, why would a group of property developers be actually interested in what I do? So let's see. I think it was timely that I actually follow Chris, and credit to the organisers for doing that. He's led nicely into some of the statements that I'm going to make today. But let me just tell you a little bit about myself. My role is the Group General Manager for Client Service Delivery. I work for the Ministry of Social Development. I've been there for 3 years now. Previously, I worked with Patrick at Housing New Zealand. I was a member of the executive team, and I looked after the operations of the organisation, the people part. So for me, I call myself a servant of the public. I love what I do. I know that every day in our organisation, we transform lives. I've just come from an event at the Novotel. It's a partnership that we've had with Accor Hotels for the last 9 years, where we work with them to get clients of our organisation into sustainable work. They've recently won in terms of the program that we partner with them on. It's called Brighter Futures. And that program, in fact, won an international award for Accor Hotels in Paris. It was really exciting. And this morning's event was actually about the 27 recruits who have successfully gone through that program, and of them, they are all starting a full-time job on Monday with the Accor Hotels and their partners. Here in Rotorua, they are all New Zealanders. So for me, that was a really moving event to be a part of. And I just want to share with you the story of one of the people who stood up and spoke. A woman who had been unemployed for 12 years, had suffered from depression, a solo mum with 4 children. And she became a part of that program, and she spoke really emotionally about the journey that she had been on, how she had been supported by our organisation and equally by Accor Hotels, and it has given her a new lease of life, and her children have recognised that the possibilities of someone actually believing in someone and taking them through a program like that. So it was really, really, really positive to be at. So that for me is another example of why I work for the public sector. It's a privilege. For me, it's a privilege to be supporting those who are less privileged than me. Actually, can I say, less privileged than all of the people in this room. So when I was at Housing New Zealand, and Patrick knows this, we used to have really challenging conversations with the development team. Because if I think about what Chris has just shared in terms of houses, fantastic, building a house, that's fantastic. And I would always say, well, it's only as good as the well-being you create when you have a house that actually seeks to support the family who are actually going to live in there. And we had some fun times, didn't we, Patrick? You know, challenging each other about what some of those developments would look like and could look like. What are the spaces outside that house? What's the community that you're going to contribute to in terms of your development? And I must say, hats off to Housing New Zealand as I've seen the organisation actually mature and think more carefully about the developments that they are creating and investing in those communities to help people who need us. Alignment was the other one I wanted to pick up on what Chris talked about. Alignment is also a constraint for us working in government. And any of you who work with government probably at times find it pretty frustrating. I equally find it frustrating that sometimes we have our own objectives and we work in our own little silos rather than thinking about collectively what we're here to do to help those who actually need us. The answer for me is always about relationships. You can have the best frameworks, you can have the best policy, you can have the smartest, technically savvy people in the room, but unless your relationships are sound and they are built on trust, you're not really going to make progress. You will make progress to an extent, but I just question the long-term sustainability of that progress and the true benefits for the people we're trying to help. So, right relationship and getting the vision right at the beginning. I just want to share a little bit with you about the Ministry of Social Development. I don't know if many of you know exactly what we do. Some of you might think WINS. It's actually the Ministry of Social Development, of which Work and Income is actually one of our business units. Our core purpose is to help New Zealanders to be safe, strong and independent. How we do that? We get people jobs, we provide them with income stability, we support them into housing, and we provide services to superannuants. So Chris, just talking about the baby boomers, we're all heading that way, aren't we? We need people to be supporting us to get there. We provide funding to community providers to provide all those wraparound services that some of our people actually need in our communities. Student allowances and loans, public housing assistance, policy and advice, data and evidence-based decisions to government. We have 7,500 staff. Our annual spend is $23 billion. We are a significant investor in New Zealand and communities. At some point in everyone's life, MSD will touch your life, cradle to grave. We currently service 1.3 million New Zealanders receiving support, of which 800,000 of those are actually superannuants. There are many people who think those who are in receipt of a working age benefit cost us the most. Actually, it's superannuants who cost us the most money. We are based in 126 sites in 11 regions across New Zealand. We have 7 contact centres. We receive 36,000 digital engagements every single day, 20,000 phone calls every day, 8,000 face-to-face engagements every day. So that's a lot of engagement with a lot of New Zealanders. And I'm personally responsible for 4,000 staff who actually deliver those services. Today I did want to provide some thought provokers for you, for the money makers in the room. And we need you to be money makers. We need our economy to be thriving. And I wanted to pose a question to you, for you to think about the legacy you aspire to when you undertake your developments. And again, I think the follow-on from Chris was really timely as he talked about property. People are at the heart of all investments. People are community, all types of people. And I ask you to think very carefully about how you think about your developments and the impact they have on people. Think about diversity of our communities in your planning and implementation. I don't know where you all stayed last night. We stayed at the Princess Gate. And as we walked across to the event last night at the Blue Bars, we noted a number of homeless people bedding down in the shelter. And for me, that strikes to the heart of how you and I need to work together more. Because I feel personally ashamed that in this great country of ours, which I call God's country, that we have people sleeping on the street. Social procurement. Just wanted to understand, I haven't met many of you, I've met some. Have you thought about the skills required in your developments? How you might create opportunities to upskill those people who are our clients, who need support? Talk to us. As I've said, we've had this long relationship with Accor Hotels, and yes, you might say, oh, that's great, Kay, it's hospitality. We're into developments, into construction. Well, I want to tell you about another great partnership that we have. It's been a long-standing partnership with Downer. And recently, we celebrated a milestone in that partnership, the 1,000th client from us who had been placed into permanent employment with Downer. And not at a level 1, but at all levels in the Downer industry across New Zealand. Our clients are actually in that business, thriving. They've become leaders within that business. And so that's an example of what we can actually do together. We are an organisation that actually can support what you're trying to do and help you to have a bit of payback, to have an investment in actually the social well-being of our country. As Chris talked about, we are embarking on a significant era of development, and I understand you had Minister Jones here this morning. He's always got a lot to say. So another part of my role, one of my roles now is with the Provincial Growth Fund, is for the Bay of Plenty, I'm called the Senior Regional Official. So it's my role in terms of the investments this government is hoping to make into the Bay of Plenty to bring together one government to actually support those developments, those projects across this region. It's exciting. It's exciting because we need that investment into the provinces to help our country to grow. So again, you are important people to be a part of that. So just some other key points that I want you to think about. When you're setting up around your developments and you're thinking, of course, it's always about where the transport nodes are, the specialist services, the technical support, consenting, all of that. I want you to have a think about support services. Support services to house the people that you're going to house and to support the people who would live around them, creating those communities. What do your open spaces look like? What do you think that they need to look like? How do you create the opportunity to improve well-being, to prevent vulnerability and illness, mental health? I talked earlier about one of our clients who'd suffered from depression. We heard recently about TVNZ staff member Greg Boyd. So, mental illness touches so many of us, so many families, and I want you to think about that. In the build space, Kiwi Build, yes, it's great to have a migrant community come in and help us get that Kiwi Build going. How about New Zealanders? As I've said, the Accor program and what they have within Accor Hotels, they're proud to say that their staff are New Zealanders. Wouldn't it be great if we all said that New Zealanders were our first priority? We can help you with that. The property sector what are you doing to think about workforce development as a key enabler of development? Your impact on social wellbeing. Again, we can partner with you. We can support you. We've supported Downer to be successful in terms of that partnership and getting people into work. That doesn't come with nothing, but we can do that. We've done that with Accor for nearly 9 years. The millennials, again, picking up on Chris's talk. When I think about that, and you're right, they're coming at us. And the other thing to consider, a large proportion of those will be Māori. and they're going to be looking after all of us. So what are you doing to think about the composition of your workforce? How diverse is it? I know you had that yesterday. Just wanting to plug that again. Again, we can help you. You may not know this, but in terms of the clients who receive support from us, and especially the working age people, 40% of those are Māori. The actually Māori population only accounts for 15%. But regrettably, 40%, there's a 40% need from Māori in terms of our support services. You might go to the other end and think about superannuants. Well, actually, that's largely non-Māori, because Māori don't make it there. So that's, again, I guess I reach out to you and ask you to think about how you could think differently in terms of your workforce and your contribution to supporting the social well-being, and also the relationship with the economic well-being of our country. Finally, I just wanted to say to all of you, it is a privilege to be up here and to share my thoughts with you. I hope some of it actually stays with you, and you might think to give me a call and talk about exactly what you might want to do to support the social well-being of New Zealanders. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. If you have any questions, I'm really happy to answer them. Kia ora.
So the first question that I want to ask Kay, part of what Chris talked about was connectivity of the millennial generation. You talk about, and it's a bit of a challenge to what you were saying. You talk about heart-centred housing and the building of community, and yet we've got our millennials that live in their phones and live in an entirely different world when it comes to community. How relevant is physical infrastructure to community nowadays?
That's a really good question, because they do think about it differently. And look, we've got a couple of millennials, Hayden and I, and with a student debt as well, all of that stuff, but they're both working, they're both off the payroll, which is, that's a positive for us. But if I just think about our girls and what they're thinking about with that physical infrastructure, they probably, yes, they want to actually have their own home. That certainly is an aspiration of theirs, but it isn't in the same way that we do. And I think sometimes the way we think about housing and the way we think about living is quite different, and we need to adapt our thinking to a new way and new opportunities of living. New Zealanders especially, I find, want the big quarter-acre section and the whole NIMBY. I don't want these people living next door to me. I'm really precious. I don't want my view spoiled, all of that. But younger people actually think quite differently. They're far more tolerant, I find. Far, far more tolerant of others and how they can co-live with other people who are really different to them.
Let's make sure before there's anyone else. Please.
Well, partly for me, I think co-design is really important. Actually understanding in terms of the type of people that you're wanting to house, actually doing some co-design about what actually really can work for people. And I think, and I know at Housing New Zealand these are some of the challenging conversations actually that we've had over the years. Where you place a kitchen, what the size of it is, how practical it is, and actually getting people in terms of understanding how they live and how they want to live. So I'll give you an example, a real clear example for me, is we assume that, and this is a cultural example, we assume that, for instance, Pacific Island people, and I'm generalising, actually want to have 3 bedrooms and 1 lounge and 1 kitchen. So we did a piece of work, I remember, at Housing New Zealand where we wanted to expand houses because we had Pacific Island families living in these 3-bedroom houses where they actually needed a 5-bedroom house. We were well-meaning. When we did that, what they all did was they got all of their mattresses and took it into the biggest room because actually they wanted to live quite differently. So if you think about who's coming through and who we're going to be looking after in the future, that actually we need to just think differently about how people actually do live, because people don't all live the way that we live.
You spoke. Let me change the question. Often you're seen as a drag on commerce. You're government, you take the taxes and you spend it on poor people. And yet you've described something different in your relationship with the commercial sector. It appears like it's still a burgeoning one. How do we accelerate that? How do we get more of the commercial sector, more of the private sector speaking to you?
My number's 029
Please,
200 6428. That's honestly, Ward. I mean, we are reaching out to a number of industries. We do have a key group, they're called Industry Partnerships, who work with particular sectors. So you may or may not have heard the Prime Minister's announcement a couple of weeks ago, Mana and Mahi it's called, which is actually about apprenticeships. And so we've launched this. We've got key areas we're focused on, construction, and it's construction with small to medium enterprises. Now Downer are facilitating that for us. It's them. Hairdressing, you might not believe it, but hairdressers, very hard to get hairdressers. Go figure. The hospitality industry, and also working with Māori and corporations. So that's just one example. But check out our website, but happy to talk to anyone. We really want to make sure that we're moving forward in terms of these partnerships that we have now, how we leverage off those, and the partnerships that we actually can have. You've got work, we've got people who need to get into work, and we can support and facilitate that process.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a great note to finish on. Te mihi nui ki a koe mō tō kōrero whakamaramana me pāna te kāwana i tēnei ahi nō ata. Nō reira, kei te mihi nui ki a koe mō tō mahi ka horatia nei mui a tātou. E hine, ka kite.